Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I don't think it's too late, so I'm going to say Happy New Year and welcome to the first ASP webinar of 2025. Today, we're going to have a chat through, it's kind of an evolution of some of the conversations we've had before, and we're going to be chatting through how we can look at your competitors to start to gain some insights regarding maybe some where they're getting their organic traffic, where they're getting their other where they're getting their other traffic, as well as what insights we can get in terms of conversions. So if you've been to one of our webinars before, I'm not a massive fan of death by PowerPoint. So what we're going to do today, I've got this document, I've shared it in the chat, so you can open that if you like. There's a link to it and work your way through that as well, alongside while I'm doing it. This is obviously, it was designed so it's good notes that you can run through afterwards as well. But today is very much going to be hands-on, flicking between different tabs and looking at different websites and looking at tools that you can use to gain actual insight. So it's not just lots of PowerPoint slides. So the purpose of today is to very much see what we can learn from your competitors to drive more organic traffic and see if you're see where they're getting their traffic from, which is very insightful, as well as what they're doing relating to conversions, and with all of this, to see what you can therefore implement onto your website. And when I say competitors, I'm also thinking of other online businesses as well, and which way may be in your market, but maybe in a different country, and see what we can learn from them as well. Because if you just think of all the websites and all the businesses that may be doing similar things to yourself, why not try and gather some insights into what they're doing and shortcut, and therefore you can improve your website too. Sometimes you can gain so much just from looking at other people's websites. So it's going to be many sides of this. We're going to start off looking at organic search, and when people are coming in from Google, doing Google searches, and this really is the best place, because when people start to think about who are my competitors, it's very often people think about who they know as the largest players in the industry, but that not necessarily means that they are competitors online. When you do a search for, let's say your industry or particular event, maybe it's actually not their website that's coming up. So we're starting this by firstly identifying who your competitors actually are. And to do this, I'm not going to dive deep into keyword research, because we've addressed that before in another webinar. And in this document, I actually provide some links to that other webinar for keyword research. But we still need to bear in mind what keywords we're actually targeting, the primary one for your business, and we can look at that and then gain some insight into who are the other big players online as far as Google is concerned. So step one, I'm going to use a tool called SE Ranking. You can, for this exercise, sign up for a 14-day free trial. It is a paid-for service if you use it for longer than that. But for the sake of doing some competitor research, 14 days should be plenty. But obviously, if you want to carry it on further, you can. So I'm going to flip over to SE Ranking. So this is what it's going to look like when you first sign in. Now, what I'm going to use here is I'm going to assume that I am a business doing technology conferences. I have a technology conference in the UK. So the first thing for me to do is to think and do some keyword research. Is there actually search for technology conferences? Is that the right word? So the first thing I'm going to do is look at technology conferences. So if I go to research, keyword research, what this is going to enable me to do is check this keyword, find some others that might be similar to it that I hadn't thought of, and find if there's actually search for that. So I'm a UK business, so let's do some search for technology conference. All looks a bit scary, it's not too much really. So initially we're looking at keyword ideas. So if we look down here, as an aside, this webinar is getting It is getting recorded, so if you want to come back and relook at some of this stuff, you can do. So we've just done a search for technology conference. Just double checking, actually, there's actually people searching for this. We can go to similar keywords. If we view that detailed report, we can see that, yes, there's about 480 people searching for this per month. I'm not going to go through all the different metrics, otherwise we're going to be here for 3 hours. But fundamentally, for technology conference, there are people searching for it, technology conferences, and some other similar type of words down here, which may be inspiration for other things that might be slightly more relevant to your business. But in this particular example, technology conference works just fine, and there's a good number of searches for those. Just to see if we've missed anything, we have very similar keywords, and also for other keyword ideas, again, maybe things that we may have missed or might be more relevant. We can look in the related keywords, which are these ones. Technology conference, as we know, it's quite high, world's biggest. So there's some that might be relevant, these aren't quite as relevant, are they? So I think technology conference looks like a good keyword that we can use where we can start to find our competitors. So I put some notes down here, so if you want to go back and have a look, you can see how that's done. And also a link to the webinar, in which gives more information about keyword research if you want to do that later. Okay, so now we've found that technology conference is a good keyword to go after. There's actual search from it. We can now actually do a search in Google and find out who our top competitors are for this keyword. Just want to check, so I think I've saved my search to the US, so I just need to change that to UK. Just for information, if you ever need to do research in a foreign in another territory, if you go up to the icon at the top, more settings, other settings, language and region, and then change this region to United Kingdom or wherever you need to do the search for, and then there you've done it. So if I now do technology conference, that will be in the UK. And what I'm now looking for are other events. What you often find when you do searches such as this is you find like this one at the top, where it's not actually an event, it's a blog post, and that'll be a list of events. That's all very interesting, but what we want to know and what we want to look at are businesses similar to ours, which is an actual events business. So if you look down here, okay, so we've got London Tech Week, we've got CES, what else we've got Web Summit. So there's a few businesses here which are actual events that we can take a look at. And at this stage, all I'm really doing is finding out who my competitors are. I'm not going to at this stage go deep into their website, etc. We can look at some of that a bit later. So at this stage, it's just finding out who our competitors actually are, so we can then go and note that down. So, like I say, we're a hypothetical UK technology event. But what I haven't found out is, so we've found some great UK businesses that we can have a look at their websites. Well, why not go and have a look at, one of the world's largest markets in America as well? So whilst they may not be a direct competitor, we might be able to learn some stuff from their websites. So we can just go through this, just repeat the process basically. So if we go back to SE ranking, initially we did our search for technology conference in the UK. And just a reminder, there are about 480 searches for that keyword in the UK. So let's, if we want to look at another territory, we just go up to this flag up here and go to America, press the search button again. As we can see in America, there's quite a bit more search. There's about 1,600 people searching for technology conference in the US every month. So this is showing this is even more popular search in the US. So therefore looking at their search results is going to be very relevant. So if we go back to Google, what we need to do now is change this search region back to the US. So more settings, other settings, language and region, If we go to United States, confirm, back to Google and Technology Conference. So we can see that we have some other results down here. CES now is #1. And if we scroll down, we have, looks like we have another NVIDIA conference down here. Web Summits further down, so we can see there are different results. So there's potentially other websites here that we can have a look at. I think for me, the one that probably jumps out is CES, because that appeared both in UK searches as well as US searches. So for me, this is a website in which Google considers extremely powerful, trustworthy, and one that it wants to present to people in both markets. So at this stage, we have, and I've gone through how to do this in this document here, and let's now note down, we can then note down some of the competitors that we found in the US as well. Okay, so we have now found some online competitors who are all targeting the same sort of primary keywords that your business should be targeting. The next stage of this is we're using a tool, again, free tool called SimilarWeb, and you can sign up for a free account here to actually find out a bit more information about where they get some of their traffic from, all of your competing websites, and you can get some great insights. So let's jump into this. So if we go to, let's just go back to SimilarWeb, as you would see it. So you'd sign up for a free account. And I'm actually going to analyze CES because this had the high prominence in the US and in the UK. So it's in, and also it's very, very well known. So in the industry of technology events, it certainly seems like the one to have a good look at. So if we put CES into here, SimilarWeb then goes off and does an analysis of this website. Now, just a very quick thing about analysis tools such as SimilarWeb and SE Ranking that we're using before. They're very good estimates in terms of how the website's performing. It's not the same as the data that you'll be getting from Google Analytics or Google Search Console, which are actual figures because you have that actually installed onto your website. With SE Ranking and SimilarWeb, using their proprietary technology, there'll be just very, very good estimates in terms of how that website is performing. So these results that you get here aren't absolute and not highly accurate, but they just give you an idea. So for example, we can see with CES here that they reckon last month that we had 1.6 million visitors to the site. So it just gives you an idea. You know, it's not 100 and you know it's not 50 million. It just gives you a reasonable idea as to the amount of traffic in which this website's getting. And as you can see, it's quite a lot. So in terms of looking at a website, it's certainly, from my experience and in all the years I've been doing optimization of sites, it's worth looking at the ones that get loads of traffic, because it therefore means that they probably, and it's not always the case, they've probably done more work in terms of making the website work better, in terms of the pages they've set up. They potentially have more money to invest into the design and the optimization and all sorts of things. So there's certainly, from my experience, sites that are certainly worth looking at. Not always the case that high traffic sites have been done well, but in many cases it is. So I'm now looking at CES. Lots of people go to this website. I think it's interesting to see on this case that 64% are on desktop, 35% on mobile. I'm surprised at that, if I'm honest. Maybe this is indicating that they have more trade at CES than consumer than I was expecting. But like I say, so desktop is important for them. We can see where okay, so monthly visits, we're getting an estimate. People stay on the site about 3 minutes, visit about 4 pages, bounce rate of about 50%. Now, where these figures are useful is maybe if you just compare it with your own, and if you could start to look at a few competitors' websites, you can see what their benchmarks are, and you can see if yours are vastly different. Like I say, a little bit of pinch of salt with the figures here, exactly how accurate they are. But if they're just saying 3 minutes here and yours is 30 seconds, there could be something wrong. Or if your bounce rate is 80%, i.e. 80% of people come on and then leave, again, that's something worth considering. Just to confuse matters, just to remind people, in Google Analytics, they don't use bounce rate anymore, not very helpfully. They use something called engagement rate, which is like the opposite. So if you have an engagement rate of 80%, it means 80% of people stay on the website. Whereas if you have a bounce rate of 80%, it means that 80% of people leave the website. So just to confuse matters as Google do, just a reminder what that is. We've got visits. Where I'm going to start looking at is where people are coming from. So as you'd expect, a big chunk of their market is United States. Where I start to get really interested is the marketing channels. How does CES drive people to the website? And we can see a lot of people go directly to it, so they know it. A lot of people also organic search. And then we have a small amount of paid search, really quite small actually. Referrals, these will be from other websites. Display ads, again, quite a small amount of social. I maybe would have expected more, and quite a small amount of email. This doesn't surprise me. What I've certainly found when looking at very, very well-known websites or events or businesses is that direct and organic, because people know the brand and it's so strong, often they have a very high proportion of their traffic is from that. If your brand isn't so well known, maybe some of these other channels will have a higher proportion. And this is also why it's worth looking at lots of different competitors and just getting a feel as to where they're getting their traffic from. There's not necessarily any right or wrong answers on this. And maybe at this stage, if your brand isn't as well known as CES, that it might be unrealistic to drive this kind of proportion of direct or organic search traffic. But at least it could be something to aspire to. And in the meantime, let's see if there's anything that we can learn about, from where they are getting their traffic. So like here, it says 93% is branded search, an awful lot. And then some of the top organic search terms, again, all branded. It does pull in some data relating to ads, and we're not going to cover the sort of Google ads. We're not going to cover that so much today, but at least it gives you some indication of where they're pulling in what keywords are being used in Google ads. Again, very much branded related search terms. But have you noted they also relate to action? So registration, tickets, etc. So sometimes it's worth looking at those too. And whether you do your PPC yourself or have an agency do it, it's obviously worth just making sure that there's some action kind of keywords in there as well. This also gives an idea as to where the websites that are referring traffic. And one thing that interested me here was ChatGPT appears to be driving about 2% of their traffic. Now, ChatGPT, people don't really think of it like this, but in essence, it's a search engine. And so when people are looking for information about consumer products, electronics that maybe CES are going to be showing, ChatGPT, it gets information about those from its website. It will crawl the website. And if you have a question about the latest iPhone, for example, that's being released and it's being released at CES, maybe ChatGPT will see that as a reliable source and then will then drive people back to the website. So in the past, when people have thought about optimizing for the search engines, they've just really thought about Google and maybe a bit of a passing thought of Bing. But really now we need to start thinking of ChatGPT and possibly all of the other AI services that there are as well. And this is an actual indication that this is starting to show up. So fundamentally saying that search engine optimization is just as relevant today, often sometimes even more important, because all of the new chatbot, all of the new AI bots are now looking for information and looking for answers to people's questions. So bear that in mind. And they can only get answers from your content. If you don't have much content on the website, there aren't any answers to be given. Gives an idea of the industries that refer. It's slightly obscure, that one, to be honest. Outgoing traffic where people are linking out to, so you can see it's basically to their reg and probably to, I think they have an informational site and also their social. This one is social traffic, and I find this one quite interesting. What channels are they driving their traffic from? And especially if you're a business that isn't maybe as well known as them, you can get some insights as to where they're getting their social traffic and maybe where you could do too. I was surprised again, I thought it was more of a consumer event that LinkedIn seems to be driving quite a bit. So maybe some work could be done to sort of delve into what they're doing on LinkedIn and how that would be relevant to your business. And then everything else seems to be a fairly even sort of distribution. Again, YouTube, I'm presuming because maybe people are doing reviews, etc. at the event. I've certainly seen people do CS reviews as things get launched, etc. So certainly from a website like that could be very relevant. And finally, some display advertising. It's only a very small proportion, so this doesn't show a lot. So as you can see, for a free service, you get an incredible amount of information. Now, just imagine this is CES, and if they're much bigger than maybe your business or your event, we can replicate exactly the same thing for many other competitors as well, and just start to think of the picture this is starting to paint between all the different websites, and it starts to give you an idea of what your website should be doing in terms of, you know, what you'd expect the mobile distribution to be, you know, what the performance should be, so you can start questioning your own figures. Now, to simply get a copy of this, because on the free version you can't just download stuff. Not sure if people use it, but there's a great little screen recorder free tool called Awesome Screen Recorder, and you can actually just capture all of this, turn it into a PDF, and then save it for later, rather than having to sign up and pay for it to get that. So here we go. We have that. So an awful lot of information can be got from SimilarWeb, and it really can be so insightful in terms of where competitors are getting their traffic from, and gives ideas as to, you know, where you need to start to do more work and etc. for your business. Now, if you're looking to start to drive organic traffic, so people searching on Google, and possibly now ChatGPT and other things to your website for technology events, like one thing we have to think about is things called backlinks. So one of the ways in which Google has scored websites in the past is looked at the other websites that are pointing to it. So, for example, for your site, if you had UK government website pointing to you or the BBC pointing to you, that will give it a lot more value, and potentially your website will rank a lot better. Now, typically events websites are very lucky in this regard, in that you have speakers, you have exhibitors, you have sponsors. Everyone likes to talk about the fact they're coming to the event, and often will link to it, whether it be from a blog post, from social, or from other sources. So typically, I find that events don't struggle when it comes to getting backlinks. But as much as anything, what we really need to be doing is looking at how your website compares with your competitors. So let's jump in and do this. So, or basically, if yours is a lot less than your competitors, your SEO might take a bit longer. And so it's very much worth knowing in that it doesn't mean you don't do SEO, but maybe SEO is something that happens in the background for the next year, but in the meantime, you spend time on social and on PPC. So at least rather than ploughing a load of expectation into an SEO campaign, and when that's unrealistic, when in reality it may take a year or so for the SEO to come up to speed. So again, another free tool. So we're looking at this thing called Ahrefs Backlink Checker. So if we go to this, and again, I'm going to use CES as an example. So there's no technical skills needed here. So we put that in, and so we've got a list of all the websites that are linking to it. It's limited in this free version that you've got here, but the key thing is this thing called domain rating. So it's got a domain rating of 85, which from experience is a lot. It's the highest is 100, lowest is 0, so 85 is very strong. They've got 2.2 million backlinks and from 27,000 websites. But the main thing is the domain rating, because what this takes, and so you could, let's say it's not the number of backlinks, it's the combined power of all the different backlinks. So like I said before, if you had the UK government and the BBC and other very influential websites linking to yours, you may only need a small number of links compared with getting a lot of links. So in this case, there's a domain rating of 85. So if you were going up against CES and you wanted to rank above them and your domain rating was 5, you'd know in the short term you've got an uphill struggle, or you've got a lot of work to do to start to get to a position where you could rank alongside them. So from my experience of doing this and looking at lots of events websites, we often find that they're normally around the 40 to 50 mark, and a lot of them are normally the same. CES is a very, very strong and worldwide known brand, hence the reason why it's so high. Normally it's much lower than this, and so if yours was, let's say, 40 and your competitor was 45, don't get hung up about that. I wouldn't worry about that. It's not an exact science, this, in terms of the rating. It's now back to, can you make what's on your page better than your competitors? But it's daft to ignore this, because if your competitor was 85 and yours was only 5, maybe SEO goes, like I say, on the back burner for a bit, and we look at some of the other channels instead. So it's just a double check, really. Okay, so let's assume that we have done our check here and that our website is not miles behind our competitors, and therefore it is worth looking at organic search in more depth. So what we can now do is flip back to SE ranking again and start to look at the keywords in which our competitors are ranking for, and maybe some of the pages in which are driving those rankings. So if we go back to SE ranking, and then there's a research tab and competitive research. Then here we put the name of our competitor that we're having a look at. This is in the US, so we can put analyze. So if we scroll down, we can look at organic keywords. So these are the keywords in which CES is ranking really well for. And if we go to view detailed report, this gives even more information. And we can see here, consumer electronics show is the primary keyword, in which it has over 60,000 searches a month. It's in position 1. So as you can see, that's why it gets so much organic traffic. And it drives it to the home page. As you can see, there's lots of there's lots of branded searches here. So if I was looking at this, there's nothing particularly to learn, because I don't think I'm going to, in my hypothetical event, is going to rank higher than a branded search. It's interesting to see that their plan your visit page is doing quite well. It seems to be mainly the home page. Again, the about page also seems to do quite well. We have an exhibitor page. I'm also looking here to see if there are any other keywords that we could potentially target for our own website. I mean, whilst consumer electronics show is, in essence, I guess, a branded term, it's also generic as well. So I think in the US we're probably unlikely to outperform it, but maybe it could be one that we could try targeting on our website. So as we can see, there's lots of information here, and what we're looking to do now is to see which pages are performing well, so very much the home page. and which keywords are driving that, and if any that we could inspire us to target on our website. Consumer electronics show is probably about the only one. I'm sure if I delve deeper, there's probably, I mean, there's 2,000 pages. So I'm sure if we delve through here, we could find other keywords that we could target on our own site. Like I say, keyword research is not the key part of today's session. If you want to delve into that, I do provide some links to another webinar that we did on keyword research, and using a tool like this to look at your competitors and the keywords they're targeting is certainly a great thing to do. Okay, so like I said, here are some links to different webinars. So there's a keyword research one where we go through in detail about finding the keywords not only for your homepage, but for all of your sub pages as well. So have a look at that. And it's one thing to identify what pages are going to target in terms of keywords. The next stage, and again, to kind of beat your competitors, you need to optimize them better than your competitors are, but you can only do that once you know what keywords you're targeting on that page. And you can do that by checking out this blog post and webinar, which will run through that in real granular detail using a tool called Phrase, and which looks at the content on your competitors' pages and then gives you hints as to what you need to put on your page to make your page work better. So check that out, and that help you out optimizing your pages so they work better than your competitors' ones. Just to not underplay this, we use this all the time in the work that we do for clients for optimizing their pages using Phrase. It works extremely well, and it's really worth spending some time having a look at this, learning how to use Phrase, because it really does work. And I'll put some links to the different tools down here that you can use. So a big part of the above was really to find out who your competitors are. So that's obviously relevant when you're looking at organic performance, but it's also highly relevant when you're looking at what their websites have done in terms of getting conversions. So what I've created here is a tick list, and what I'm now going to do is have a look at CES and what's on that website that we can potentially learn and implement on ours, even if it's the good and the bad. So I'm going to move this tick list over and go to CES's website. Now, I always like to look at sites on both desktop and on mobile. Now, I noticed from their data that it was a smaller percentage mobile. I'm not sure if I truly believe that, if I'm honest, but even so, given the amount of traffic they have, there's still a significant number of people that visit this website on mobile. So it's daft not to look at it on a mobile device. And again, with your websites, I'm not sure what the percentage will be, desktop users versus mobile. Have a look. And my suggestion would be, in fact, always, unless you have a very small percentage that's mobile, I'll always have a look at it in mobile view as well, because it's amazing how so many people just look at the desktop version. Then when you go on mobile, and there are things that just don't look right. It's two different sites in essence, even though it's the same. So I highly recommend you look at the two. So the first point to put on the checklist was responsive design, and as we come on to this, this is what we're checking here. So kind of first impressions really, and that's what I like to look at when I first come onto a website. And it's often best sometimes when you haven't seen much of a site before, because then you can give the kind of first impressions as if you would be as if you were a visitor. So therefore, I know this sometimes can be tough if you know a website really well. So sometimes it could be maybe you need to hand this over to someone who doesn't know your site to have a look at it. So let's think of some first impressions when I come onto this on desktop. We have two different colors for sign up. The sign up and apply to exhibit are both in the same colors, not one particularly stands out. And we have a lot of blue. I seem to think that I remember CES's website from last year, and I personally think this is a backward step compared with last year. It's very blue, and again the search bar there, I wouldn't say particularly stands out. The menu is slightly, again, there's not often when you think of making elements interactive and making people want to use them, often think of contrast in terms of color, and there's certainly not a lot of contrast there for the finding the menu, and again with the search up here. If I was them, I'd probably install something like Microsoft Clarity, which is a free service, onto here, so you can see if people are clicking on these elements. You'd hope that they are. We obviously have these items at the top, which, yeah, it'd be interesting to see from their Microsoft Clarity where people are actually clicking and is it getting used as it should be. But first impressions are that it's not terrible. It potentially could be improved with colours and improved contrast. Let's have a look at the mobile version. So we have sign up, apply to exhibit at the bottom. It's quite nice that you have these sticky buttons, so you always have those there. Again, there's not an awful lot of contrast to the menu button. Search is a bit more obvious because there's nothing else up the top. And see, we're at the cycle where they've just had the event, so there's a thank you for joining us, so that's pretty clear. That's not bad. So I briefly touched on calls to action. So we have two key calls to action here, and we have two here. So I think especially on mobile, I like the fact that they're there all the time. It's pretty clear what they're trying to get you to do. Desktop, if we scroll, yeah, we have a sticky header. So again, it's fairly clear. I think the contrast, like I've mentioned before, of the buttons could be a bit better. As you go down the page, it's often nice to have other buttons throughout the page. So we have one here, sign up. Slightly disappointed it's not the same color as the main sign up button in the header. What you often find is that if you have for certain actions a certain color, as people then work their way around the website, they subconsciously know that to sign up's one color, to exhibit's another color, and therefore it makes it easier for them to make that choice to press that button. That's what we found. So slightly disappointed that's not the same color as above. As we scroll down, videos on demand. So if you notice here, there's reasonable contrast with this button. As we come down to this one, that's not actually a call to action button. That's just a bit of navigation to the site. And so therefore, that shouldn't really look like a call to action button. So bear in mind that with your websites. Sometimes we find it's not the call to action button that's the problem. That might be fine. It's the fact you then have loads of other buttons which aren't calls to action, which are the same design, the same color, etc. So by having all of those, it crowds out the actual call to action button that you have. So as we look down, we have, there's that button. Looking for other call to action buttons. We have contact sales, not quite sure why that's in twice. As we scroll down a bit further, again, call to action button is that's button the same as a call to action button, and there's nothing really in the footer. So what this is immediately telling me is that you could probably do a better job at CES in terms of its calls to action, colors, etc. Now let's have a little look on mobile. Sign up now. Often find another top tip is not just to look at the version on your browser in terms of mobile. Actually pick the mobile up itself and use your own mobile device. That's often a great way to interact with your website, and it feels, it's a more realistic way in which you will deal with the mobile version. So at this stage, I'm looking at call to action buttons. I think the main thing I would learn, I think the best thing they've done, if I'm honest, is have these stickies at the bottom. So it's wherever you go on the site, you can always see what the key calls to action are. Oh, there's a question. Let's have a look. Microsoft Clarity is very similar to Hotjar. Great thing about it, it's free. So one thing to bear in mind, though, it's another bit of code that's added onto your website, and we do find it slows the site down a bit. So when do you install it? Generally, it's when you have enough traffic to get some meaningful results, so people are clicking around, but not so much traffic in your key run up to registration, and which is going to slow the site down too much. So I'd probably have a defined period and look at Google Analytics, and when maybe last year you had a decent amount of traffic where it's running for a bit, but then I would suggest turning it off, because you want the site to be as fast as possible when you're in that key period leading up to registration. But it's very similar. It shows heat maps, shows how far people scroll down the page. It shows where people are clicking, and yeah, it's fantastic, like I say, and it's free. Okay, so what are we checking next? Sorry, let's get back to my documents. Okay, so we've looked at calls to action. Now let's look at the menu function. How you navigate around the site, it massively impacts how the actual conversions that you get if it's easy to use. Obviously, people are more likely to enjoy using the website and do what you actually want them to do. So if we go here, we have an extremely clear, I'd suggest, menu. Quite impressed by that, actually. Large writing, large buttons. There's nothing ambiguous about this menu. Attend at the top. And the other thing to bear in mind is just when you're thinking about your own menu, in what order you put things. So if I'm coming to CES, it seems very logical to have attend, why attend, attendee overview. I think that is very good, actually, how they have done that. It's very easy to use, this menu. Also, from their experience, from their keynote speakers, are probably a key driver. And they have, I'm sure, all their view in terms of pages and which are popular for people. So again, bear that in mind. Look at what they've done and how can you order your menu to maybe guide people to the pages in which they want to see. So overview, keynotes, and then other stuff down here. If you note, we've also got some more calls to action down here. I'm quite sure what these bits are at the bottom, but very obvious calls to action. So I would certainly, if I was looking at my website, look at their menu and how they've done that. Mobile, again, extremely clear. I'd almost go as far to say their desktop menu actually has been designed more for mobile. So on mobile, I think this is really excellent. Very, very clear, large writing, easy to understand. What I would say, and just a little note here, is they have attendee overview, and then the page is called Why CES. It's quite nice just to have some consistency as you go from one to another. So either change the menu item or the page title, because then sometimes people think they've gone to the wrong page, when in actual fact you just want to know there's that continuity between one page and another. In terms of navigation, obviously we have the search bar, which is nice and clear up here. So, and we can search circuit sessions or articles. So let's see how well this works. I don't know. The key thing with search is it has to work, and this seems to work quite nicely. So certainly impressed by that. Then in terms of other navigation items, firstly, you can click on the logo and come back to the home page, double check that you can do that. It's the obvious thing for lots of websites. This site doesn't use, as far as I'm aware, what's called breadcrumbs. So if you go to a page, oh, we actually, it looks like we do. So this is what's called a breadcrumb. So as you go deeper into the site, you have what's its parent page and what page you're on. And it can be quite a nice way of then navigating back. It also works really well for SEO. We do find a lot of our clients don't like using breadcrumbs, which is a shame because they do work really well in terms of both user navigation as well as for SEO. They can really help the site too. Let's see how that looks on mobile. So as you can see here, it doesn't have to look too out of place, as long as it's designed in from the beginning. I find if the breadcrumb is an afterthought, it can look pretty poor. Okay, footer navigation. It is good to have info of kind of repeating all of this in the footer. It's fairly basic, I'd suggest, what we have here. I don't think it's even got all of the main menu items. I probably would put all the main menu items in. Maybe some calls to action. So there's probably better examples of a footer. Like I say, if you start looking at numbers of websites, that's not to say CES is the best at everything. And from looking at it, it isn't. But from what we can find here is there are some things it's doing really well. But when you look at other websites, there might be other things you can take from those. Homepage. Okay, so we've got the main hero section. Let's go back. So that was a thank you for joining us. I think they could do a better job personally in terms of hero sections. And if you think about it, this is such an important part of, it's the first thing that most people will see. So on mobile, this image is a bit small. And this is where testing can play a big part, and trying different designs, whether it's a video, whether it's a slideshow, or the images that you use, in some way encapsulating very, very quickly to your visitors what your event is about. And on mobile, I think they're missing a trick here. You can't really see what's happening, and for me, I'd like to see something more vibrant there, to be honest, and even on desktop. So, but on the other hand, worth considering is that they have a static image, which means that the homepage will be nice and fast. So there's always that balance between having something which encapsulates your event and your audience very quickly, but on the other hand, doesn't slow the page down. But I think it's pretty clear that, yeah, the event is over and you can see where they're at, which is quite nice. Oh, we have another question. So, can we add links on ASP templates easily? If after the website's been set up and you want to put them in retrospectively, it's more difficult. But if it's in there from the beginning, yes, you can. But having said that, ask the question, because I wouldn't know specifically for each of the individual templates, or if you have a custom site. So ask the question. It may be a yes on your site to retrospectively put it in. I don't want to stitch up Stu's team, and it's probably not an immediate yes, but certainly from the beginning, it's much easier if you put it in from the beginning. So if you're getting the site refreshed at the end of the year, maybe just wait up until then and get them put in there. So yeah, first impressions, we've kind of spoken about that. Trust signals, look for testimonials, badges, or awards. Obviously more important if the brand is less well known. We often find, I'm surprised actually how few of our clients put testimonials on their homepage. People just love to hear about what other people have said. So if you can, they can work very well. If there are any awards, if there are any high profile exhibitors, speakers, again, which brings trust. CS don't need to, I think, from looking at it here, because they are so big. But if there's anything that you can put in just to add a bit more trust, it can certainly work and build confidence. I'm not going to go through all of this list here because there's quite a few bits, but we have the checklist here. And also, if you look at our webinars, we have, actually I've noted it down here, we've got a UX and CRO fundamentals webinar, which kind of runs through a lot of these details. But probably the last thing I would look at, as we are running short on time, is this kind of customer journey for some of the key calls to action. So if we look to sign up, okay, that's interesting. Let's try this on mobile as well. Doesn't make sense to me what CS registration notification means. That actually doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And remember that journey. So I pressed sign up. So I'd expect here to have a page that just says sign up. And then below that, actually have the ability just to sign up with the full and keep it relatively simple. Oops. So I think this is an example of a page that hasn't been done well. I press sign up. I'm expecting to go to a sign up page where I can fill a form out, maybe give some reasons on this page why I'd want to sign up. Maybe I'm going to get special offers. Maybe I'll get signed up to a newsletter or blog where I'll get all the latest and greatest, technology updates, etc. in the industry. And it kind of doesn't really do any of that. So there's not a lot to be learned by this page, unfortunately. We can learn they haven't done a very good job there. Okay, let's see if apply to exhibit is any better. Okay, contact a rep. I'd like to see a few more reasons as to why I'd want to either sign up or contact a representative, some of the benefits, and that can be done very concisely. For example, I think CS sometimes say that they are the world's largest event for technology event. So even if it's something like, would you like to exhibit, have the opportunity to exhibit at the world's largest technology event, for example, just something that is going to make me want to spend the next 2 minutes or 5 minutes filling out this form. So hopefully the document we've attached here and some of the tools we've used gives you some ideas as to how you can look at your competitors to get some pretty amazing insights actually in terms of what they're doing and how you can learn from what they're doing. I'd certainly recommend that if you do this exercise, it's done relatively methodically, in which you write down your findings, and especially with your competitors, kind of the conversion items we were just talking about there, you have some way of noting it all down to get that learning, and then you can start picking out bits which you can take from one site and take from another to all to go into your design. So it's certainly worth doing it quite methodically and spending a bit of time doing it. It's probably not a 5-minute job, but on the other hand, just think of the impact you could have by learning from some of these top sites. So I've suggested a kind of implementation plan here. Here's some of the tools that I've alluded to. And also put down some key takeaways as well. And yeah, what you can learn from other people, and just think about it for a second. There's other teams of people like your teams who are actively looking to improve their website, and they're all getting paid and they're all using consultants and they're all doing stuff, which is, they'll be looking at your site, possibly you're looking at theirs, but the more you do, the more chance you have of your site being better. But think about it almost simplistically, then it comes down to, when you first look at the site, how does it work? Are the obvious things being shown there? Because sometimes it's easy to get so lost into a website and its design that some of the obvious things aren't there. So hence, when you first go to, like I did onto the CES site, Those first impressions really do matter, and maybe you have someone else in your team who can kind of help out on that side and which aren't working on the website day to day. If you do it, it works. This is a big part of the process and what we do when we look at client sites and look to improve their organic search and improve conversions. So I've pretty much shared what we do. So if you implement this, it can really work. So hopefully that was useful. We've come up to time. And just any questions, really quickly fire them through. Also to highlight, we have another webinar. Do we have the date yet, Katie? On the 18th of Feb, we have our follow-up webinar. What we're going to talk about there is tracking and UTMs. We've had a few questions from clients recently on how to make sure that we get tracking codes from all marketing campaigns via an ASP website and then through into Google Analytics. And we can talk through some of the nitty-gritty on how you do that. And in actual fact, most of it is relatively simple, but you don't know it until you know it. So we'll just run through step by step how we can make sure that all of your campaigns have the right kind of tracking codes, and so it can all be read within Google Analytics, so you can get some of that key data out at the other end of your campaigns which are working and ones which aren't. So I hope that was helpful. Any questions, let me know. It's being recorded, so you can have a look afterwards, and hopefully you've got the document so you can review it afterwards, and I'll look forward to seeing all the lovely improvements to your websites. Thanks very much.